What's up, Wisconsin? Welcome back to the Inside Wisconsin show here on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Trevor Thomas and that guy with 4 letters before his name, and then John Anderson. What's up, Jay?
I'm good. How are you, man? I'm ready to go. As always, I notice you have your Packers on. I have Avon Old Farms, which I'll explain, but it's not actually. This is, as much as I know, America needs farmers, and we love Platteville and the agricultural industry. That's not what this is, but we'll get around to it. But we're good. And listen, anytime we get to talk about Packers, Packer adjacent, or right in the middle of it, then it's going to be a great show.
There's a couple things going on right now that are worth talking about. And I bring up those 4 letters because the guy today also has those 4 letters before his title, too. Rob Demovsky, ESPN Packers reporter, who you've connected with over the years. Obviously, he joined ESPN in 2013, right? And I think you grabbed dinner with him at the Union. Anyway, you guys go back a little bit.
Here's what I'm going to tell you how good a guy this guy is, right? Like I always like to tell why this guy is a good guy. So Rob Demovsky, who lives over there in De Pere, my mother's in Ledgeview, and he never fails when we chat or what's going on. Does your mom need anything? During the pandemic, I think Rob Demovsky checked in to see if my mom needed something more than my brother did, who lives just across town by the airport. That is not a stretch. I didn't tell him when she broke her wrist out here ice skating for fear that he'd be like, hey, can I do this? And he's in the middle of the tournament, a basketball season and the Packers off season. And I'm like, I don't need Demovsky with one more thing. Like, what's up with my mom? But that's how good a dude he is he literally checked in during the pandemic on my mother if she needed anything with me more than some of my family members.
Wow.
So there you have it. And he had to deal with Aaron Rodgers while all this was going on.
Yeah, all that too.
How's that for an endorsement?
Good dude. Rob Demovsky, ESPN Packers reporter. Here we go on the Inside Wisconsin show.
The Inside Wisconsin show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Aaron's Company, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, Provea Health, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us. John Robb joins a very small group of people that have been on the Inside Wisconsin show numerous times. It's it's Olivia Harlan-Decker, and now it's Rob Demovsky, covers the Packers for ESPN. Rob, good to see you again.
What's up, Trevor? John, how are you guys?
Do we not count as being on more than once?
No, we don't.
That's strictly in the guest. So, Rob, this is the first show I've done that I've not worn something Wisconsin related.
Okay.
This Avon Old Farms, I'm wearing my son's high school in honor of you and your son. And let's forget about the Packers and let's forget about Aaron Rodgers. We need to talk about the really important things in life. 30-0, your son and the Redbirds are state champs.
Look at that. There it is.
Take me through that joyride you had.
Yeah, it was wild. The weird thing is not that you ever expect to win a state championship, but like this group of seniors, ever since they were in like 7th or 8th grade, they were supposed to go to Madison and win a state championship. But how many times does that actually come true, let alone go 30-0? The interesting thing about my son, Hogan, he was one of the starters on this team. But if you go back we moved to De Pere, a little suburb of Green Bay, as you know. We moved here when he was in 8th grade, but he started playing in the youth program when he was in 5th grade. And he was on the C team. They had A team, B team, C team, D team. He was on the C team, so essentially the 3rd group as a 5th grader. He was on the B team in the 6th and 7th grade. It wasn't until 8th grade that he even made the A team. And then he was sort of one of the last guys on the team. But this kid, John, worked his butt off and became a starter on a team that went 30-0 and won a state championship as a senior, which, I'm really proud of that for him because I'll be honest with you, I had coaches from your alma mater, Southwest, Ashwaubenon, Notre Dame, that said, hey, tell Hogan to transfer here and he'll be a starter for me right away. We just happened to be really deep, and he just worked his butt off and found his way into the state championship game. And it was so neat, seeing this whole group do this. You never expect to go 30-0, but it kind of like, as it's kept building, it's kind of like, well, if we don't go 30-0 now, it was kind of like a, not a failure, but what the heck happened? Kind of thing.
Yeah, there is that.
Well, once you get into the tournament, anything but is going to be bad when it comes through. What's the vibe like? I know the women, the girls have won a state title before, but what, like the school, are we celebrating in town? What has been the reaction?
Yeah, it was amazing because on the way out of town, leaving De Pere on Thursday night to go down to Madison, they had the fire truck, the police cars escort them to the highway on Thursday night. And then when they came home Sunday morning with the gold ball, that's what they give the state champions in Wisconsin. The fire truck and police escort picked them up in the parking lot over at the Walmart in West De Pere and escorted them back to the high school and had a big celebration at the high school. But the interesting thing is there's two brothers on the team, the Kinzingers. John Kinzinger is a senior. He and Hogan are the same age. There's a sophomore, Zach Kinzinger. Zach's also a starter on the team. John was Mr. Basketball in Wisconsin. The day we get home from Madison, they have the celebration at the high school, bring the trophy into the gym and place is packed. Zach Kinzinger starts throwing up. They take him to the hospital, and he has his appendix taken out, emergency appendectomy. If that happens one day before, we don't win the state championship. Zach Kinzinger, sophomore, had 19 points in that championship game and guarded Arrowhead's best player. If we don't have him, you go from maybe, okay, there's talk that we were the best team all time, in the state of Wisconsin, definitely the best team from the area, the Green Bay, Northeast Wisconsin area, to you losing the state championship game and no one remembers you. It could have been, we were that close. That's the amazing thing about sports. Like, wow. History could have been changed because the appendectomy happened, a day earlier, or even if it was a week earlier, he probably doesn't play.
Wow. I thought you were going to say he went right back to shooting. I thought there was going to be a happy ending. This is how dedicated he was. He went right in and started shooting threes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a crazy story when it came out, literally hours after the celebration.
Yeah.
Rob, I was at Sidekicks having a Bloody Mary early that Sunday afternoon. Needed one, Pink Flamingo bowling tournament the day before, and literally saw the buses go by with the police cars and the fire trucks. I thought that was pretty cool. Rob, you aren't a Wisconsinite, yet you've been here for 26 years, and you mentioned De Pere. Right. There were grown-ass men that you personally know that were crying when this happened. You became a member of the community. I would assume that feels the same way for you, and, you have a son on the team.
Yeah, it's interesting, Trev. I used to, up until, a month ago, when I was at the grocery store or the golf course or wherever, it was always, hey, what do you think of the Packers? Who are they going to pick? What's this? The last month, it's been, hey, congrats to your son. I ran into this lady in Festival Foods the other day. Oh, we're so happy for your son. We went down to De Pere. We have no ties to the school, but we just went down to Madison to watch the games. And then yesterday, I guess it was Tuesday, the day before we're taping this, we go to vote. Hogan's 18 now, so we go to vote at the church down the street. And we walk in, and the woman says, oh, congrats on your state title. Oh, and congrats to you, Dad. I'm like, what? I'm second fiddle now. So.
Yeah, you've been the focus for a long time. It's kind of nice, isn't it? Though the shadows are terrible.
It is. It was like it's so hard though, sitting in the stands and having a rooting interest in something. Because look, in our jobs, we may have people we like, teams we like, but I don't root for the Packers. I root for a good story. It's so different when you have a stake in it. I know a little bit what fans go through now when you have like the stake in it. I gotta tell you this. There was a funny story in the semifinal game. Hogan lost his shoe and they didn't stop play. Like he lost it on offense. They go down on defense. He still has his shoe off. They come down on offense again. He gets the ball on the left wing. Looks like he's a really good three-point shooter. Looks like he's going to go pull the trigger on a three. And I'm like, you're not really going to shoot this with one shoe. But he had the presence of mind to shot fake, get the guy off the ground, throws it to the wing, and Zach Kinzinger hits a three, and they finally stop the play. I'm normally like the excitable one, we'll just say, in the stands. Like, people have to calm me down. My wife, who never says, she's the one who's usually digging her fingernails into my thigh, basically telling me to shut up. She stands up while this is going on, and she screams, get him his blanking shoe back. So, I mean, that's what it does to people. My wife was the calm one, never usually says anything, stands up and screams, get him his, what shoe back.
Jeez. That's awesome. All right, passion out of mom too. That's real good.
Oh, for sure, always moms.
Yeah, it is always mom. All right, so you mentioned it there, Rob, that you don't care if the Packers won. So let's go back to when you actually came to Wisconsin, 1997. You joined the Green Bay Press-Gazette, and here you are now as a fairly young reporter. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it was basically my second real job out of college, and I worked at the newspaper in the town where I went to college, Ohio University, Athens, Ohio. Shortly after I graduated, so I stayed there for a little bit, but it didn't feel like a real job because I was still in my college town. Then I went to upstate New York, Corning, New York, that people probably know Corning Glass, small town, Corningware. Covered high school sports there, and then applied for a job at the Green Bay Press-Gazette when I was, I guess, 25, 26 years old.
And what did you start with there? Did you start with the Packers, or was it the Green Bay Bullfrogs?
I was the third guy on the Packers beat then.
Oh, cool.
They had just, now keep in mind, the interest was at an all-time high. They had just come off the 96 Super Bowl season. I get hired in August of 97. So we had two beat writers, Pete Doherty, who's still there, columnist, Chris Hobble, who was the columnist at the time, now does a radio show in town. And I was the third. They were adding a third person to the beat. But I also was hired to cover UWGB basketball. And I'm a college basketball junkie. Like, I love college basketball. And at that time, UWGB was coming off, probably its glory years with Dick Bennett as a coach, Tony Bennett, the Jeff Nordgaards, those teams that made the NCAA tournament, seemingly every year. They upset Cal one year with Jason Kidd. And so I was like half Packers, half UWGB basketball. But as I quickly realized, it was really 90% Packers, and whatever time I could contribute to basketball, I did. I'll never forget, like, the first time, and I grew up in the Chicago area. I knew what the Packers were about. Used to come up here. My neighbors across the street in Arlington Heights, Illinois, they had a cottage in Kashina, right down by Shawano. So we used to come up here all the time and just never really realized people lived here. But I realized what I was getting myself into, that I think it was maybe the off season. I was looking back at clips, trying to do research on the Packers and, learning what I'm getting myself into. And I found a story, maybe it was the next off season, I can't remember, but I found a story when Craig Hentrick, the Packers punter, left in free agency in the offseason. It wasn't just a front page story on the sports section. It was a front page story in the newspaper, like A1 across the top. Packers lose punter Craig Hentrick in free agency. Like, that was when I was like, whoa. And then there was another thing, too, that jumped out at me. All the guys that had radio shows, Gilbert Brown had a radio show, Leroy Butler had a radio show, Favre had a radio show, right? Not that big a surprise. But Jeff Thomason, who was basically their third or fourth tight end and backup long snapper, had a radio show. I was like, oh, this is incredible.
I say that having worked in and around Oklahoma and watching Dallas so close, I'm like, right now that the Rangers, some guy hit 3 home runs, was the best story until the second string long snapper left, and then you went, oh wait, he's got to go up to the top because now we have Cowboy news. But coverage has still changed even in that quarter of century you've been there.
Yeah,
because I get on and I read, like, you guys track throws on 7-and-7 drills. Like, it's gotten even more intense. He completed 14 of 18 and I'm like, he's throwing against garbage cans. What am I learning from this? Like, it's even in your time there, right? It's gotten more intense.
Well, I think you start with the Packers beat. Like, my view of it is like Cliff Crystal, who covered the team in the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s, and guys like Bob McGinn. They set like a standard for the detail in the coverage, and I sort of felt like it's our responsibility to give readers that. Like, I'm not going to say like I was revolutionary in it, because I was just trying to do what those guys had done before me. But one thing that I latched onto early on, John, was for whatever reason, I bought a stopwatch, and they had punting competitions. The punting job was open probably after Craig Hentrick left, and I would time the hang time on every punt, and I'd put it in my stories. And, like, I can't remember who it was called, nicknamed me the punting professor or whatever. But it was just like, it was something that, like, even if you don't know anything about football, you can hit a stopwatch when the ball's kicked, and you can stop it when the guy catches it, and you can realize who's kicking the ball better. But, like, and that's the thing. I say that as an example of the detail that is on the Packers beat. And it sort of bothers me, and I think this is relevant now with, everyone saying, well, how's Aaron Rodgers going to handle the New York media? And look, I'm not saying that the New York media isn't, maybe a little more cutthroat or whatever, but the detail of coverage, critical coverage, details of stuff like that is as strong in this market covering this team as anywhere. The only difference, I think, is that maybe it's not the headlines are different. We don't have the tabloids. We don't have page 6, which in the New York papers is the gossip stuff. We have a page 6 in the Green Bay Press Gazette and Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. It just happens to be the Farm Report and the obituaries or whatever. But like page 6, that's the only difference. So it actually kind of bothers me, to be perfectly honest with you, that people think this is it's a soft media. We cover the heck out of this team and scrutinize the heck out of it. And go ask any coach. Go ask Holmgren. Go ask Ray Rhodes, Mike Sherman, Mike McCarthy, and now Matt LaFleur, the types of hard questions that they get asked about football. Maybe the difference is it's about football. And, it's not about, what happens off the field or whatever. I think people here want football stuff. And I think the level of scrutiny and coverage is second to none on this beat. Mike McCarthy basically thought we wrote too much about scheme. And before it was like in vogue to like not say anything about schemes and injuries, McCarthy did, because the detail of coverage that, getting out on this beat was just so in depth. I'll never forget, they drafted Randall Cobb, and that first training camp, they were working on some trick plays and I think he was holding on special teams. And all I did was I tweeted or wrote something like, oh, watching a special teams period, didn't realize Randall Cobb was left-handed. And McCarthy got mad at me. He's like, well, now you're telling people we're going to throw, we're going to do fakes with Randall Cobb as the thrower. I'm like, first of all, Mike, anybody who in the league who watched Randall Cobb knew he played quarterback in Kentucky and was left-handed. I didn't, because I wasn't watching Kentucky when Randall Cobb was a freshman. But that's the kind of thing that would get out on this beat. And I just think that's where I probably got off track here. But like when people talk about, the New York media is going to eat Rodgers alive,
right.
You asked all those guys. I think we asked, pretty hard, detailed questions.
But that's from your side. Don't you find from the other side, like people there are voracious for it? They want what's the strangest detail you've put in and somebody had said, thank God great, I didn't know that. Like they'll eat up everything.
Yeah. It was more,
no matter what month of the year, right? All season, there is no off season.
It's more the level of knowledge. Like I'll never forget, it happens still. Like, you're in the grocery store, you're wherever. Who's going to be the fifth corner on the roster? Have you done your roster projection yet? Like, who do you have as the number 6 receiver if they keep 6? What about this guy? Like, people know this roster inside and out. And to me, that's where it sets it apart. I guess, and I don't want to stereotype like fans, but like growing up in Chicago, I guess we just had so much more that no one cared about that stuff. If the Bears stunk, you watched the Cubs. If the Cubs stunk, you waited for basketball season and you watched the Bulls. And like it's not the same level of detail as this whole place is. And everyone knows something about this team, and everyone has a connection to it. Oh, even if it's just, I was having dinner at the Union Hotel and Nick Barnett came walking in at 8. It's just there's a connection pretty much to everybody. It's this 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's the 6 degrees of Green Bay Packers here.
Only
it's 3 degrees, and there's no anonymity if you are on the team or you're connected with it some way somehow, right? Whether if you're covering them, if you're the team orthopod, that guy lives next to me. It is those tentacles are all enveloping.
And it's also from a journalism standpoint, it's interesting how you find out about things like, I'll never forget, David Bakhtiari tears his ACL in practice on New Year's Eve 2020, I think it was. I get a text from a buddy of mine, Trevor knows him, I'm not going to say what his name is, but he's got some connection. He knows one of his college roommates was the son of a board member or was a friend of a son of a board member. I get this text from the guy. He's like, hey, it's too bad about Bakhtiari. This is like 5 o'clock. They got done with practice at 4 o'clock. I'm like, what are you talking about? Too bad about Bakhtiari. Well, he tore his ACL. I'm like, what? Now we only get to watch the first half of practice, but when we were at practice, he was there. I took attendance, checked off number 69. Never thought, so I started making some phone calls, text a few people, and it was, how the heck did you hear about that? It just happened. And I'm like, well, it's Green Bay for you. Like, that's the amount of, like, Todd Archer, my good buddy who covers the Cowboys, is always amazed at, like, those types of stories. You know, oh, yeah, I was at the Best Buy, and I ran into so-and-so, and he said Mike McCarthy's given up play calling this year. You know, like, that was another one. When McCarthy gave up play calling, like, somebody ran into, like, Edgar Bennett or somebody in Best Buy or the grocery store, and Edgar Bennett, who was the offensive coordinator, happened to mention to somebody, oh, yeah, you know, Mike's going to give up play calling, and then that person tells this person. It's unreal how this stuff, I don't think that happens in, you know, the 31 other markets where just everyone has some connection to it, and news gets out like, you know, like that.
I talked to that guy on his way to work every single morning, and he knows more people than all three of us combined. It's ridiculous. All right, back with Rob Demovsky in just a bit. This is the Inside Wisconsin Show.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Aaron's Company, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, Provea Health, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us. J.A., it is Packers draft time, and you know as well as anybody that we will tailgate for Packers anything, right?
Draft
there will be
parties
people.
Are great.
Bingo, big time. And the amount of Miller Lite that will be consumed in a responsible manner is great. Did you mention some episodes ago that you thought, not like breaking confidence, that the draft was coming here? Yeah?
Yes, I think, yeah, it's got to go to Kansas City and Detroit. But yes, I think the draft, yeah, I don't have a full date, but yes, it will eventually, it will be here sooner than, I don't think it'll be till 2030.
I think okay, we got a minute then, but that's going to be epic.
It'll be before that.
I just don't think that anybody else does tailgating, does the Miller Lite scene, has what we have here. They're going to be blown away. Let's go ahead and bring the draft to Green Bay, Wisconsin in April. Could be 70, could be 20 and a foot of snow. And we'll still be out there with our Miller Lites and our grills and our brats, enjoying everything that is Wisconsin. And I call it deer drinking or beer hunting for, you know, deer camp. This is just beer drinking season now. It's going to get warm. We're good to go. It is a Wisconsin beer. What
do you have on draft? I'll take the Miller Lite. It all fits together. That's what I'm saying. It works out perfectly.
Light beer with flavor, the flavor you love. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/Inside Wisconsin, or literally you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer.
Anywhere.
John, even by the pallet. What is this?
This, you always ask me, where'd you find your Miller Lite this time? I found it at Darrell K. Royal Stadium. At the Texas Relays, and then this is the fella. He's bringing it right to my door. I was there almost 6 days, so he just I said I need some Miller Lite, and he was just bringing it over
by the pallet. Hey, remember, celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Not gonna lie, that was a really cool picture. By the pallet, big fan. We are back inside Wisconsin in between segments with our guy, Rob Demovsky, talking a little Packers and a lot of other stuff. But quick, time for a top 5 list presented by Wisconsin's best engineering school. It's the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. UW-Platteville offers an affordable engineering program, and its graduates stay in Wisconsin, driving innovation at top companies right here at home. Find out more at uwplatt.edu/engineering. All right, J.A., it's all you this week. The top 5 what?
These are the top 5 reasons that we should be terrified that Aaron Rodgers wants to be a Jet, and it is offered with no comment on the ability of what he has shown or what he might show, all with Jordan Love. This is nothing about Jordan Love. This is all about basically what this is me having a therapy session. I'm getting rid of some scar tissue. Top 5 reasons we should be terrified that Aaron Rodgers is no longer the Packer quarterback?
Number 5.
Randy Wright.
Okay, explain, because I'm young.
Former Badger quarterback, started a year and a half for the Packers, whatever it is, maybe won 3 games.
All right. Bad run. Got it. Number 4.
Rich Campbell.
Go.
Former number 1 draft pick out of Cal. When they drafted him, they're like, I don't know that he has an NFL arm. I don't know that he started a game. If he did, it wasn't very long. And he was, outside of perhaps Randy Duncan, the largest quarterback bust in history for the Green Bay Packers. Randy Duncan, remember, Randy Duncan led the Iowa Hawkeyes to the Rose Bowl. I think they drafted him number 1 like in 1959. It might have been with Lombardi was there. And I don't know that he ever played a game for the Packers. He was a disaster. But Rich Campbell was a number 1 draft pick, like 19th overall or 119. Anyway, I believe he went on to become a minister, and thank God the Lord loves him because nobody in Green Bay does. Number 3, Jim Delgado.
Okay.
I think we sent a number 2 draft pick to the Dolphins for him. Back in the day, he might have been on the taxi squad for them on the 72 champs, but Jim Delgado couldn't play dead in a cowboy movie. Number 2, Carlos Brown. Do you remember Carlos Brown?
No.
Okay, I do. So this is why when you go, I'm done with Aaron. I'm not done with Aaron. And this is why. Carlos Brown at number 2, who, by the way, has got a new name because he's an actor out in Hollywood. So he could play dead in a cowboy movie where Jim Delgado could not.
What's number 1?
Oh, that's easy. Dan Devine traded two number 1s, 2 number 2s, and a 3 for John Hadel. Okay? This goes beyond me not liking dudes from Kansas. This was perhaps the worst trade, not only in franchise history, but maybe in NFL history that set this team back forever. So, Wright, Campbell, Delgado, Brown, Hadel. Here's the thing, Trev. These are some names that got to pass. Okay? David Whitehurst, Scott Hunter, Jerry Taggy, another number 1 pick and a Green Bay West kid.
Yep.
Matt Flynn, Magic, Mike Tomczak, Jim Zorn, Scott Tolzien, Seneca Wallace, Blair Keel, Alan Risher, Anthony Dilwood. These are all people that started a game for the Green Bay Packers. All of them.
Yeah.
Okay? So now tell me again how happy you are that Aaron's gone.
I'm faithful. I am faithful. That's what I am. I am happy that he's going to be happy in life.
List?
No, I'm pretty sure we're recording this. Jeez. All right. The top 5 reasons why John and apparently others John's age are terrified that Rodgers wants to be a Jet. Okay. No pressure, Jordan.
No, not with those names. There is no pressure. What's the worst you could be? You could be one of those dudes. Well, listen, we got 20 of them.
Yikes.
You know how bad he's going to have to be to crack that top 5? He'd have to be miserable.
Well, let's hope he's not, please. Let's just not even put that in the universe. All right.
Do I sound
it is
bitter?
what it is.
Do I sound bitter? Because I feel like I'm taking it well.
I don't think you're bitter. I just think you're nervous, and apparently rightfully so, based on everything that the 27 names that you rattle off at the top of your head.
You just throw out the top. I get it. Guy went to Darkness Street. I can't believe it. He's a nutball. I don't want him anymore.
I didn't say that. I did not say that. I'm just done with the drama.
Who needs an
Back to Rob.
Quarterback?
I don't want to fight anymore. We are back, the Inside Wisconsin show. Trevor John and ESPN Packers reporter Rob Demovsky. Rob, you were talking about how Packers get recognized around town. I was curious if that happened to you when you made the switch to ESPN in 2013, right? You're writing in the paper, and they put your little picture next to your article sometime, but you went from that to like, oh, you're on ESPN, like literally every single day from that very seat that you're sitting in. What's it like for you now?
You know what the biggest difference, Trevor, was in the locker room. Like, I mean, guys knew, players would know who the beat guys are, maybe not by name, but, oh, that's the guy from the Milwaukee paper. That's the guy from Madison. This is the guy from the Green Bay Press Gazette, whatever. But like that 2013 instantly started going on television. One of the first stories that happened when I went to ESPN is Rodgers breaks his collarbone. I didn't know anything about TV. Next thing I know, I've got an earpiece in and I'm giving reports from outside the stadium, and they're asking me to rap sound. I'm like, I'm not a rapper. What does that mean? They're like, no. You do an intro, we play a quote, whatever. I didn't know anything about TV. I'll never forget going in the locker room as that year went on, and guys like Brian Bulaga, who probably knew who I was, guys who had been there a few years, the Randall Cobbs, James Jones, Jordy Nelsons. All of a sudden it was, hey, I saw you we were eating lunch in the cafeteria, saw you on SportsCenter. Oh, so you're working for ESPN now, blah, blah. It's just that kind of thing, just, you become the ESPN guy, and there's just, because you're on television, and it's, even if they're not listening to it, it's on TV in the locker room or the cafeteria or the weight room or whatever. And to me, that's where my life and job changed a little bit. Not necessarily around town, because, like we were talking about earlier, the fans eat up everything, so they know, pretty much everything about the media and all this. But from a player and even national perspective, like with agents, I got more calls back after I started working for ESPN, and maybe it's just because it's ESPN, but I think, you get a blind phone call from somebody you don't know, but you reckon, oh yeah, I saw that guy on TV, he must be okay, so I'm going to call him back. Like, that was probably the biggest effect for me professionally, moving from, the Press Gazette to working for ESPN. I don't know that it was any different with fans or readers or anything like that, but from people in the business, in the football end of it, totally different.
Yeah, they're powerful letters for sure. When I went back one time for the Cardinals, I had been there for 3 years previous before ESPN, and you were just the regular guy that went out there every day. Yeah. And then I came back like, hey, who can we get for you? I'm like, hey, where was that level of service really for the local people? You should have had for the guys when they came through. Did you ever know that first day that you're like, wow, I didn't know I was going to have to know that much about Seneca Wallace?
You know what's funny? That first year was crazy, because one of the first stories in training camp that year, I think I covered the first 3 days of training camp for the Press Gazette, like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Took the weekend off and started at ESPN on Monday. And like one of the first stories was they signed Vince Young that summer. And again, one of those only in Green Bay stories. I remember somebody was at the airport and saw Vince Young and put on Twitter, hey, why is Vince Young at the Green Bay airport? And, you end up seeing that. So I didn't know I didn't know how to get a hold of Vince Young, didn't know his agent. So I texted or emailed Adam Schefter, who I've known, over the years as a newspaper guy. He didn't know I was working for ESPN yet. It was like a week into that. And ESPN hadn't announced at that point that they were hiring people to cover every team, the starting 32 NFL Nation reporters. And so Adam's like, yeah, let me see. I can confirm that Vince Young. So we have a story, with Adam and I, that Vince Young is signed with the Packers. And once we get done with the story, Adam goes to me, he goes, so wait, so why are you working for us now? I'm like, well, first of all, you paid me more money. Second of all, like ESPN's hiring, 32 of us. And he's like, really? He had no idea, So it's just, that kind of thing was, I will say this too. One thing, like I talked about growing up in Chicago, right? My dad worked in the city. We lived in the suburbs, and my dad would bring home newspapers on the train. We'd get the Daily Herald, the suburban paper delivered, and my dad would bring home the Sun-Times and the Tribune at night and read them on the train and give them to me. So like, that was like my dream job, right? Was to cover the Bulls I grew up in the Jordan era, cover the Bulls for the Tribune or whatever it was, cover college basketball. Big DePaul fan. DePaul was great at that time. Oh. So I started ESPN on a Monday. I opened my computer. I unboxed my computer that gets FedEx to me at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever time it was. Log in, whatever, 8:05. 8:06, my phone rings from a Chicago number, 312. It was a guy I'd known. It was an assistant sports editor at the Tribune. And he calls me. He goes, hey, two of our Bears guys just moved out. I think Dan Pompei had left to go somewhere. He's like, how would you like to come home and cover the Bears? He knew I was from Chicago. And I said, well, I just started at ESPN. And he goes, well, when? I go, 5 minutes ago. Like I had just unboxed the computer. Not that I would have. At that point, I don't know that I wanted to live in Chicago with young kids or anything like that. I probably wouldn't have. But it was just, how funny is that, right? Like the first day. You're 5 minutes into working for ESPN, Chicago Tribune calls.
Jeez.
And yet, right, and this is where I get it because I'm always a TV guy, there's a credibility that comes for being rooted as an ink-stained wretch, whether it's you or John Clayton or Will McDonough from way back, or the guy that was dabbled in TV. He was tragically killed, but a former head of the sports writer. I don't remember Steve Schoenfeld.
Oh yeah, from Arizona.
Shoney out in Arizona. But there is value, as much as the ESPN's power, the letters. There's value in what you have done going forward that we trade off, that we're happy to eat up.
Right. Well, Adam Schefter worked for the Denver Post.
Yes.
I knew him. The Packers played the Broncos in Super Bowl 32. I'm pretty sure Adam was covering the Broncos for the Denver Post, and I think that's when I met him. So, and I will say this, like, you know how it was, John. Like the print guys would always kind of, you'd make fun of the TV guys.
Totally.
Oh, they're just 30-second sound bites or whatever. Well, try standing up there, taping. And this is another thing I didn't realize. Live television is not that hard because you have to do it. If you trying to tape a 45-second thing, and it takes you 10 takes. Like, I have no idea how hard taped television was versus live TV. Live TV, you just go, right? Like, you somehow you get through it. You try to tape something. I screwed that up. Delete that. Start over. Like, I'm out there 10, 11 takes into it going, man, maybe I should have been nicer to those guys at WBAY instead of making fun of them or whatever. But because that stuff's hard. It's really hard. And talking, reporting for television, it's different than reporting, in a newspaper. Like, you got to get the attention right away. I mean, you do in a newspaper story too, to a degree, but like, you got to, why am I watching this? Otherwise I'm going to turn the channel. So I had literally no television training whatsoever when I started at ESPN.
It's admirable. It's great. You're right there. You're a legend or a leader. I don't know which one of the Big Ten things, but you're one of those two for sure.
I ask John all the time, Rob, about the idea of a journalistic approach to sports. There was a few moments a year or two ago when John was on SportsCenter reporting on the Packers, and I texted him because apparently people love texting you guys when you're on TV. I was like, how do you do that? How do you shut that off? So I know you're not a Packer fan, right? But you're a fan of sports. Yeah, so what's that like when you're just trying to wear the work hat versus geez, I can't believe you missed that pass?
The weird thing is about getting texts in the middle of stuff. Like, I get texts in the middle of games, like, hey, what happened to Aaron Jones's knee? Is he okay? I'm like, read Twitter. Like, I can't, like, I'm not your personal Twitter account, like I'm working here, and most of my friends get it, but you're part of text chains with 8 guys that are, you play golf with or whatever, and they're texting about the game. And my phone's just, it's just blowing up, right? Like, jeez. I'm like, I don't text you when, I don't text the surgeon when he's performing, ACL surgery on my buddy's high school basketball kid, but I don't know how I got on that track. So like, you're talking about like being a journalist versus like being a sports fan kind of a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always curious, right? Because I know you're not a Packers fan, and you say that a lot, right? A couple weeks ago, you're like, I don't care if Aaron Rodgers likes me or he doesn't like me. And I totally understand that part of the business. But at some point, do you catch yourself watching games as a fan versus working? Here's my best example I can give you guys. I'm the public address announcer for Green Bay basketball, right? So I sit courtside literally every single game. Clearly, I know this thing's in front of me. I know I have a job here. And all of a sudden, I'll be really into the game. And I'm like,
oh, totally. Like the number of things that I've seen, just historic type things in sports. Like, sometimes you catch yourself and you go like, man, you look around, I'm at the Final Four, or I'm at, Aaron Rodgers throws that Hail Mary to Richard Rodgers in Detroit. And like, for a split second, you're sitting in the press box going, holy cow, that was unreal. And then you're like, oh my God, I have to write, like, we have to file something as the game ends. I got to rewrite everything, right? Because this just happened. But like the amount of things that, that you get to see, if you allow yourself that moment to kind of soak it in, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It's incredible. I will say this, when I go to games, when I'm going to a Bucks game or a Brewers game, or I'm in another city and I go to the Masters as a fan or whatever, like, the first thing I always kind of look around is, well, where do the reporters sit? Like, all right, where's press row in this arena? Even at the state tournament in Madison, and look, all right, where's Scott Vency, who covers preps for the Green Bay Press Gazette? Where's he sitting? So you just kind of look at it a little bit differently. And the other thing is, I'm probably a nerd when it comes to like stadiums and arenas. Like, I just love walking into an arena, and I love, or a stadium, and I love doing it, 2-3 hours before the game when no one's in there. And you just sort of sit there and you soak it all in. Like, I love college basketball, and like Packers played the Eagles a couple of years ago, and a bunch of us went over to the Palestra on the campus of Penn, one of the most historic, East Coast college basketball arenas. We just called over there and said, "Hey, we're a couple of guys who cover the Packers. Can we come see the arena?" And the guy took us around, and Hinkle Fieldhouse, where Butler plays in Indianapolis, kind of the same thing. My son Hogan's going to play basketball at Lawrence University in Appleton, Division III school. Their gym dates back to like the 1930s. Like it's just, I just love that. That's the part of sports that I love. And honestly, it's probably why I got into this business. Like I was talking about DePaul basketball. We had DePaul season tickets in the late 70s to 79. They went to the Final Four all through the 80s. They were a national powerhouse. And I'd go to the games and I'd watch the games. And then as soon as the game was over, I'd watch all the media guys going, all right, they must be going to talk to players. They must be going to, do a press conference with the coach or something. And I'm like, and I'd read the paper the next day and okay, I watched this happen. And now I'm picking the newspaper up and reading, all right, I saw what happened in front of me, but these guys found out what happened to make what I saw happen. And to me, whenever I talk to like journalism students, I always tell them that like our jobs is to tell people things they didn't already know. Like I watched the game, you watched the game, you know what happened in the game. Tell me why it happened. Like that, the play to, Aaron Rodgers throws a touchdown, game-winning touchdown to Devontae Adams. Like, how did that come about? Oh, we threw that in on Thursday afternoon, the last minute of practice, and we threw that play. Like to me, that's the kind of stuff that I do that gets me excited about sports. Is like being able to find out stuff that not everybody knows and then tell those people that. That's I feel like when I talk to journalism students, like after I say go to law school, but if you're still with me, if you want to do this, like it doesn't happen with every story or every report you do, but try your best to tell people something they didn't already know. And if you do that, like to me, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I could do a show on just that answer because I've jotted down when Ralph Wiley said one time, the good ones tell you what happened, but the great ones tell you what it means. Yeah. Tim D'Antoine, one of my high school classmates, he was a catcher at Lawrence, D3 school, and happened to do that. The Palestra is amazing. I love to sit and talk with Tim Lester about LaSalle and Penn and Temple and Villanova off the main line, all those guys, which is amazing, which is why when I got to go Franklin Field, Penn Relays last year, that was amazing.
Yeah, we walked out and saw that too. Yeah.
And if you're a kid that grew up in Green Bay like I did when GB was Division II, but they played DePaul all the time, and I think they beat them once.
They did.
When you grew up with Mark Aguirre's and Dallas Comagis and those guys,
Harry Cummings, Tyrone Corbin, Rod Strickland.
And what is it? They said that Ray Myers never had to recruit outside of Chicago or Illinois his whole time there. It's just, that was, and they'd play Marquette and they play Notre Dame on Sunday afternoon, and you're like, what's better than that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about?
And I don't know if we talked about this the last time I was on the show, but. I go back to my dad bringing the paper home and like the notes columns, like the tidbit stuff.
Yeah.
Like the game story is what it is, but like I always got wrapped up in the notes, like the 1-2 paragraphs strung together of this guy said before the game in the Cubs clubhouse, this guy said just those little tidbit things. Like that's what drew me into wanting to do this. I just think that stuff's so cool, and I'll never forget. Like the first current event that I remember as a kid was the first news thing was Reagan getting shot in 81, and it happened to be the day of the national championship game, Indiana, 1981. I can't remember who they beat in that game, but Reagan was shot that day, and I remember kind of being like, oh man, the game's not gonna happen because the dumb president got shot. And I remember my dad coming home and saying, no, this is important, forget sports for a minute. And back then there wasn't 24-hour news cycles. There wasn't CNN. So you'd watch the local news about the president, the president got shot. Give me some information like that. I remember that being like, I like to find out things. And that's sort of why I got into this.
Yeah. Or just you go to these old places. The first time I went to Memorial Stadium, I went, Johnny Unitas played here.
Yeah.
Or the first time I went to St. Andrews, I was sitting there and I was chatting with a guy. He was, what can I think of his name? Golfer, played at Kansas State from Oklahoma. Anyway, he was about to hit, and I said, "Is it like? Does that make your knee shake to hit out of Old Tom Morris's divot?"
Right.
And he's like, Well, I hadn't really thought about that till just now.
Yeah.
When he goes through that. So
I remember the first time, actually the only time I've ever been in Madison Square Garden.
yeah,
I just graduated from Ohio U and was working at the newspaper, the Athens Messenger, probably 10,000 circulation. And I think I was making $15,500, no benefits in 1993, 94. The basketball team was in the preseason NIT. I don't even know if they have the preseason NIT anymore, but they go to, it's not set up for Ohio University to make it to Madison Square Garden, but Ohio University had a guy named Gary Trent, Shaq of the Mac. They go to Ohio State. They upset Ohio State in Columbus. They go to Virginia. They beat Virginia at Virginia. Now they're going to the Final Four in Madison Square Garden, and it's always around the Final Four for the NIT. Used to be the day. The semifinals were Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Championship game was Friday after. And I'll never forget walking into Madison Square Garden and walking down the hallway. Like the Knicks locker room was down one way, the Rangers locker room was down the other way. The dressing rooms for when they have entertainers is down another hallway. And down each one of these hallways, they had giant, poster-sized framed photographs of all the sporting events. Ali fighting there, the Knicks teams of Willis Reed, the Rangers, and then the Rolling Stones and Bruce Springsteen. Like, it was a museum of people who have performed and played at Madison Square Garden in the hallways, to where nobody else sees that but the people who have that access. And yeah, I was making $15,000 eating ramen noodles for dinner every night, but I was walking the halls of Madison Square Garden, people don't get to see this. And it was just, I don't know. That's when you talk about like being a fan, Trevor, like that's the kind of stuff that gets me going. Like, do I care if the Packers win? I mean, look, I've said this before. The best thing for a beat writer is to cover a really good team or a really bad team. Because the bad teams, the stories are great. Everybody is dysfunctional. Everybody's ripping each other. The worst is like 8-8 and 9-7. And maybe you make a playoff. Nobody gets fired. I mean, that's like boring. So like you can't spell media without me, right? M-E. Like I root for the story. Like that's kind of what I'm after.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I just root for results. I just need something as a result goes. Let's talk shop a little bit. So Jordan Love, savior, we're good, no worries, everything's fine, perfect. What do you have?
John, I feel like, and this could be revisionist history, but I feel like in the end of 2007, beginning of 2008, that they knew Aaron Rodgers was going to be really good. Like, did they know he was going to be a 4-time MVP, Super Bowl winner? Probably not. But, I remember Mike McCarthy and Ted Thompson both saying when they got out on the plane leaving Dallas that Thursday night in late November when Rodgers relieved Favre and he almost rallied them, both teams were like 10-1 going into that game. And I was pretty sure, I'm not fancying myself as, an X's and O's guys, but like I was pretty sure walking out of Texas Stadium that night that they had something in Aaron Rodgers. I don't know that I can say the same thing about Jordan Love. I don't know if they can say the same thing about Jordan Love. The game in Philadelphia this year where he played 2 series in the fourth quarter, led a touchdown drive and a field goal drive. It was really good, but the Eagles were up, 3 scores and playing soft coverage. Even Love after the game, I remember talking to him, and he even said, he goes, they were playing pretty far off. It was not like, it was not like real defense. So I just don't know that they have enough of that. I will say this, the guy that walked in here, the first training camp when they had no preseason games because of COVID in summer of 2020, to the guy who walked out of the locker room the last day of the season this year, totally different guy from a personality standpoint, from a confidence standpoint, a leadership standpoint. He has yet to really show a ton of personality with us. Maybe that's there. I hope that's there. That makes our jobs more exciting. But from the way he walked in 3 years ago to where he is now, as a person, totally different. As a player, different, but I'm not sure different enough. I do think, we all kind of laughed a year ago when Tom Clements came back as quarterback's coach because Aaron Rodgers wanted him to be his personal quarterback's coach. And Clements was obviously one of his first coaches, at the position here in 2006, I guess he got here. Tom Clements was in retirement, drinking wine out in California, and he came back to the Packers last year because Aaron Rodgers wanted him to. That might be the best thing that happened to Jordan Love, because Tom Clements can build quarterbacks from the ground up. I mean, when Rodgers got here, remember he carried the ball way up here. He was kind of stiff. It was real goofy throwing motion. He totally changed it. And I wonder how much of an impact that has had on Jordan Love. My suspicion is that if Jordan Love was paying attention, he probably should have and could have picked up a lot from Tom Clements. So I think it'll be interesting to see what he looks like, this training camp when he's because look, OTA practices, we're going to go out there in April and May or whenever we get the first OTA, and we're going to go back to the beginning, what we're talking about. I'm going to chart every throw he makes. And he was 7 for 8 on throws, out 6 for 7 this way. But we're not really going to know until, probably the regular season. But, we'll at least get a glimpse in the preseason. The one thing I've cautioned everybody about, as good as Aaron Rodgers became, and he was actually pretty good that first year in 2008. I think it was a little over 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns. Now, he did throw 13 picks, that was his high. He never reached that again. But they were 6-10. And then the next year, they start the 2009 season, and they're 4-4. So 24 games into Aaron Rodgers' career as a starter, the Packers are 10-14. So, and I bring that up because Rodgers was still really good. In fact, they gave him a contract extension before the 2008 season ended. But they weren't winning games yet. And that's the part of it where I think people are going to have to be patient. Like, if Jordan Love goes out and plays really well, and there's signs that he can do this really well or that really well, and they go 7-10 this year, I don't think it's that big of a deal. If he really struggles and there's some things that it just doesn't look like he's picked up and they go 7-10, it's probably a bad sign.
All right, one more shop question quick, and then we're going to take a break. And there's a chance that this doesn't make the show, right? Because he could get traded literally 10 minutes after we hang up with you. We'll cut it, and it is what it is. Or he'll make the show because he has yet to be traded. So everybody keeps comparing this to Favre, right? Yep. The difference is Rodgers really hasn't waffled a ton. He didn't retire. He just seems disgruntled. What is going to happen? And if you have no clue, say no clue, and we'll go to a break. And that's totally cool.
What's going to happen with the trade or with?
Yeah, like have you ever seen something get drug out like this? Listen, John was right earlier. I'm over it. I'm ready to move on. I'm not a reporter. I'm not a journalist. I'm a fan. Yeah. This sucks. Get out of here.
I feel like we sort of reached that when he said he wanted to play for the Jets, and it's now just a matter of making it happen. And the way look, it's going to happen. Like, there's a 99% chance it's going to happen. Now, does it happen this week? Does it happen the week right before the draft? Does it not happen till after June 1? Does it not happen till the day before they report to training camp in July? I think the Packers aren't taking him back as a $60 million backup, right? They moved on to Jordan Love. To me, the biggest difference in this whole thing, Trevor, from just how it went down standpoint, is that at no point did Favre want to leave the Packers. I mean, they made him retire. They wanted a decision, but Brett still wanted to play for the Packers when he came back, and that's why there was such the groundswell of support in favor of Brett, and Ted Thompson and Mark Murphy were the devil for not taking him back. In this case, Aaron Rodgers basically has said, yeah, I want to go play for the Jets. I want to move on. And I think that's why there's not there's not this outpouring of, oh, you can't let Rodgers go kind of a thing. And there's plenty of differences and plenty of similarities, but the one thing that I think we have to remember is that the Brett wanted to come back to the organization, and they didn't want him back. And that's the biggest difference.
Yeah. And the coolest part about this is that Adam Schefter was right the entire time.
Yeah.
The culmination of events.
Yeah, and that's if we're going to get into that, there's one thing that, and I get along with Aaron, we have a really good working relationship, but the thing you bring Schefter up, for how long, and he said it on McAfee and most recently, did Rodgers say, all these people who think they know what's going on in my camp, they don't know anything, you don't have sources, if you want, the information's coming from me. Well, Adam tries to reach out to him, he gets his phone number, somehow I don't have his phone number, he gets his phone number. He does what Rodgers is basically telling people to do, is don't speculate based on what other people tell me. He gives Aaron the chance to say, all right, this is what's going on. And he says, lose my number. That, I think people lost some respect for Rodgers in that regard.
Yeah. We didn't have much left.
I would say, as somebody who covers them and has done what you've done, although not as granular with being the same team all the time. Listen, Rodgers was really, really, really good. We'll miss that. And it seemed to me, for the most part, was both available and when he was insightful and that or interesting. Whether you like people that have, that maybe he's too deep and he might be out there, or that he's dating a gal that eats dirt. It's going to be hard to find somebody that is more interesting and available. And as you said, those are things you really look for. Yeah, and in that regard, that will be missed.
Like Aaron at his locker every Wednesday talks for 25 to 30 minutes. There's never a question. It's never really cut off. I mean, there'll be a time when you can tell the questions are getting maybe a little bit whatever, and the PR guy will say, all right, 2 more. But like, I look down at the end of it and my tape recorder's been running for 25, 28, 30 minutes every Wednesday. Like, that doesn't happen. Tom Brady talks for like 5 minutes, during the week and 5 minutes after the game. If you're working on a story and you want Aaron Rodgers' opinion on it, he's going to give you a thoughtful answer. Now, that didn't happen right away. Early on, I actually thought he was really guarded and, reluctant to say anything. Obviously, as you become more comfortable in whatever you do, you're gonna be more open about it. But and I thought Brett was the same way. If I was working on a story, I could go to Brett and ask him for his opinion. Now, Brett would talk for so long that if you wanted a quote to support one argument, he'd give it to you, and in the same answer, he'd give you a quote to support the opposite argument. But like, people around here are fortunate that they have quarterbacks that, what does it mean? Okay, they talk to the media a lot. Well, that's the fans' kind of connection to him. And like, now everybody watches press conferences because it's all available. Like, if you sit there and watch a Rodgers press conference, you'll see that this guy's, he's not mailing it in when it comes to his obligations that way. And that doesn't happen everywhere in the league.
All right, we'll wrap it up with Rob Demovsky, ESPN Packers reporter, after a quick break. Got to go eat some dirt. We're back in a second. Inside Wisconsin.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Aaron's Company, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, Provea Health, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube. Leave a review. Smash the like button. Just get with us. Remember when Bonnie Blair couldn't walk through the Festival of Foods without getting recognized? Now Rob Demovsky can't walk through a Festival of Foods without being the dad of Hogan Demovsky here at Deep Here.
Right, like he's probably recognized all the time, right? Hey, nice. You get your produce. You're getting, that guy's having steaks. Except now, instead of, as you put earlier, ESPN NFL Packers reporter,
there are those letters.
Hogan's dad. That happens a lot. That happen. Listen, every once in a while, people would say that. Are you John's dad? And my daddy loved that. And they'd go, are you Mr. Anderson? And he'd go, yes. And he wouldn't even tell them that wasn't his last name. He was just great. So dads are, dads, when they're proud of their kids, are fantastic. I'm sure sooner enough, you're going to be somewhere and you're going to be the boy's dad.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah,
that's going to be fun.
It'll be known.
They're not there quite yet. Well, guaranteed, Rob was in Festival Foods. We're all about the brats this time of year. The launch of bigger, better brats in every Festival Foods location has happened. 2 new flavors. Check this out, dude. Mac and cheese brats. That's ridiculous. Can't wait. And
I usually I keep those separate, but okay. I'm willing to learn.
Last one. There's 2 new flavors. General Tso's.
General Tso. Yes, very good.
Tso? It's TSO.
Yeah,
General Tso.
Like General Tso's chicken, it's the Chinese food of brats. Who knew?
I've been calling that General Tso's my entire life. It turns out it's General Tso's and mac and cheese. Those brats are now available at every Festival Foods in all of Wisconsin because, listen, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
So, and like if you have those at home and all of a sudden you hear a plane going over to Austin Straubel, you're like, oh, look, there's a flyover over my house, just like at the Brewers game on opening day.
Make it happen. Go to festfoods.com.
The plane has gone over. I hear the sound. Look, I've had my own personal flyover. What were they doing? They had a flyover, Trev, and the roof was closed.
Yeah, that was. But the cheese heads on the head after home runs injected into my veins. That is so just like a mac and cheese brat at Festival Foods. That's what it is.
Don't drink and slide.
We're back. Segment 3, our final segment. Rob Demovsky, ESPN Packers reporter. All right, Rob, I get 2, and then John takes it from there. Here's number 1. when you were down at the NFL meetings, I believe it was in Arizona, you asked Coach Matt LaFleur a question about something going on, right? Probably Rodgers related. And he said, I thought you were going to ask me about De Peer's championship. And then he said something that not many people caught. And he mentioned something about a speech he gave.
Yeah.
Did he talk to the De Peer basketball team before they played in that championship game?
He talked to them before they left for Madison. Their last practice, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. And like I said, I think I said earlier, his kids play in the De Peer youth program.
Yeah.
He happens to have a relationship with the De Peer football coach, a guy named Ben Strickland, who played for the Badgers. I don't know what the connection is, but yeah, he came out to practice and brought his two sons out, and they, kind of shot around with the guys. And yeah, after the practice, he gave a speech. Hogan, my son, didn't give me exactly what it was, but all I know is there was a little profanity in it. And then that LaFleur felt bad about it. I'm like, felt bad about it. These are 17, 18-year-old kids, man. Like, don't worry about it. So yeah, so the funny thing is, I will tell you this. I did text him after the semifinal game, which was a much closer game than it should have been. I said, hey, thanks for talking to the boys. We eked one out in the semifinals. We got the championship game tonight. And he goes, well, they better win, because if they don't, it's going to be because of my speech. And he blamed himself kind of. So that was kind of funny.
And now they won, and he's taking credit. Makes sense. Yeah. Totally makes sense. All right, last piece. We talked a little bit earlier about the moments that you take in. Yeah. Rob, you've been in Wisconsin 26 years now. Is there a moment in all the things that you have covered that really sticks out to you as, damn, I cannot believe I was here for that?
I mean, Super Bowl 45, obviously, in Dallas. Like, my first year, I covered Super Bowl 32. I had no idea what I was doing. The Packers were a 14-point favorite, and they lost to the Broncos. And but like Super Bowl 45 was like, I've been here a while. I kind of know what it's about. And like that was, it's one of those moments, like, you're like, all right, I'm here for a job, but like, this is history. You look around here and, this, AT&T Stadium holds 90,000 people. Now, not all of them had seats that night. If you remember, there was some tickets sold that didn't exist. But how many years, it's like the Ice Bowl, how many years, 20, 30 years from now, there's going to be, 200,000 Packers fans that say they were at that game. And that was one of them, until I went into a panic coming back from the locker room trying to get to the press conference, got on the wrong elevator in AT&T Stadium. I got onto a service elevator and I got locked in there, and I'm on deadline for the Press Gazette. And I'm stuck in an elevator in Cowboys Stadium, and I don't know how I'm going to get out.
Oh, that's terrific. And then not only are you covering history, you're covering history in a franchise full of history, which is nice to have sort of your chapter to record in those annals, which I imagine is always kind of fun too, when that happens. So I'm going to go through a list of quick questions for you here. Most of these are nonsensical, because we like to think that our guests are more than just their bylines. So you mentioned Todd Archer. I just need you to give me the names of the other 30 NFL team reporters.
No, I could do it.
No, but give me one. Give me a guy that would be a good read for people that don't know. Like, hey, go read this guy, even if you're not a favorite of his team.
Yeah, I mean, Archer, obviously, Cowboys. I mean, like I always say, John, there's like, for me, there's teams, and then there's the reporters that I associate with those teams. The Jets. I mean, Rich Cimini has been the guy on the Jets forever. Obviously, I've been a little bit paying closer attention to what Rich is writing lately, and have worked a little bit more closely. But even when I was young in the business, like, Rich Cimini was the guy on the Jets. And like, I'm not just going to sit here and tell you about all ESPN reporters. We've got a lot of great ones, but having grown up in Chicago, like Brad Biggs on the Bears, like Brad Biggs, he worked for the Sun-Times and the Tribune, became a friend of mine. Like he's the guy, like, and Courtney Cronin, our Bears reporter, does a great job. She just moved there. She's going to be a TV star. She's on all, around the horn all the time. But like, those are the kind of people that like, jump out at me. Like, I would hope that people would, they think about the Packers and who they want to read would think about me, but there's plenty of other great reporters that cover this team as well. But like, those are the kinds of people that I associate with their teams.
I'm doing my ESPN expense report for the Texas Relays. What's per diem at ESPN? Do you know?
I do, and my per diem's probably lower than yours. $61 a day. I have to do my owner's meeting expense report. But when I went to London, I found out it was like $100 and some US, and I spent less because I was just drinking Guinness in the pub.
It's the same for all of us. $61 a day. That is correct, Trev, in case you just want to know.
Got it.
What are the Packers? Who are the Packers drafting with their number 1 pick?
Not a receiver.
Very good. Give me your favorite athlete as a kid.
Michael Jordan. That's a lame one, but I grew up in Chicago, so I feel like I have the rights to that.
All right. Best athlete in your neighborhood that wasn't you.
It definitely wasn't me. My friend Todd Grayshak, really good pitcher, serviceable basketball player, good football player.
Very good. I feel like the Press Gazette has had kind of a birth order thing. When were you guys going to let Wes up?
Wes?
Yeah. When are you gonna? I realize you're apart now within Pete's remains, but I just feel like you guys, some point, it's kind of like watching Cooper and Peyton pick on Eli. Like, when are you going to let Wes up?
Wes picks on me more than anything. Like, and the funny thing is, people think we always make fun of each other on Twitter and we'll take shots. People think we don't like each other. Wes is one of my best friends. Wes is awesome.
Give me the Packer player who you wish had a really good career but didn't because he was a great quote.
Well, I love Leroy Butler. He's probably my favorite guy I've ever covered. He's obviously became a great player.
Yep.
Boy, there's so many of them. I guess it depends on what your definition of great play. I thought Eddie Lacy was a really good quote. Didn't last very long, but I always got a kick out of him.
Give me the golf course that you haven't played, but that you would drop everything and go to.
There's 2. And I'm not going to say Augusta because that's everybody's.
Sure.
Growing up in Chicago, Shore Acres was like, I've always wanted to play there. It's along the lake. And then Seminole in Florida.
Yeah, Seminole. You can't even. Seminole's one of those places, it's like Pine Valley, that when you start playing there too much, they send you a letter and say, hey, we notice you've been playing too much golf at Seminole. Yeah. Finally, the best NFL road trip.
New Orleans. Not even close. They should play every Super Bowl there.
It's a great event town, isn't it?
And if you have Pete Doherty on, ask him about getting locked out of his room at the Pierre Marquette Hotel.
Trev, you writing this down? I got it right
here.
Yeah,
I got it right here. Pierre Marquette Hotel, Doherty.
I don't know if Doherty remembers. We went out on my 21st birthday at Missouri.
No, he remembers going to school with you for sure.
He was a friend of. He was a very good friend of the guy who ran the radio station at the time, named Steve McCall. And so, we went, but like never the two shall meet, right? It's like, oh my gosh, you can't, if you're a TV guy and you get too close, the ink comes off on your hands, and you can't have that when you get on TV. But he happened to be out with Steve and I on my 21st birthday, which wasn't going to be a big celebration. We had to go to the Big 8 track meet the next day. That's awesome. But they were having $2 pitchers during the Cardinal game, and the Cardinal game went like 14 innings, and so we couldn't help but have a few too many when it comes through. So I bring this all up because it's going to relate. Trevor, we're going to go right into John, Wisconsin, if that's okay.
Deal.
Because even though I am in television, I have always, Rob, been a newspaper guy. I read Cliff Crystal. I loved reading Mike Royko syndicated and making jokes about Wisconsin for whoever he wrote, or learning about whatever was 16-inch softball that he used to play.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? Like that guy to me is just, I loved reading Jim Murray and his columns when they came through, or Frank DeFord. So I think I might have done this for Wes, but I'm going to show you anyway. So because I'm rooted in that, I have, Trev, we need both of us. So I have, these are things in my life I have from the Press Gazette. Like I have Bart Starr's, I have his retirement paper.
Wow.
From back in the day.
That's cool.
Like I don't have to go to the microfiche when that happens.
Did Cliff write that story?
I'm going to go look. I have this one, which is obviously really big.
Oh, yeah.
That's Vince Lombardi dies. That's the Washington AP line first.
Okay.
And then the actual byline here is Lee Remmel.
Oh, yeah.
On this one, when he comes through. So we have Lombardi. And then just to show you, this is where the Packers are that everybody should know. So we have Starr retires. We have Lombardi dies, and naturally that goes right up there with Man on the Moon, because those are similar events. And we have, if we go through here, this is, I believe this is I got to be careful though, right? They're yellow. They're
no ripping.
But do you have the front page?
How about this? This is the Des Moines Register. I have a Des Moines Register from when Kennedy died.
Oh, wow.
And then I have a Press Gazette as well from that.
But do you have the Press Gazette where Craig Hentrick was on the front page for signing?
I keep looking and I'm like, how did we not save Craig Hentrick being, cut? It's going to be the same thing. Like if Mason Crosby gets cut and we don't have that, what are we going to do if we don't have Mason? But I love guys that wrote for the newspaper. I tried to get the newspaper delivered here, the Hartford Courant, which if you don't know your paper history, right, is the longest running actually daily going.
Yep.
And I called these people in a dying business, said, can I get the newspaper? And they said, sure. And they sent me to their circulation office, which was like in St. Paul, which is ridiculous. And they go, yeah, we'll get it started. And a week later, it still isn't here. The first Sunday comes. So I called them back and they say, no, I'm sorry, I don't know. And then the guy came the first day, and of course he just throws it out the window, and it's halfway somewhere in my front yard. And then it didn't come for 3 days. And I finally called and I said, I can't believe this. I really would like to get the newspaper, and you can't even get me the newspaper anymore. Do you miss the newspaper, and what should we know? I hope it's not a dying market, but what are kids like your son missing with the newspaper?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame, first of all. Like, the deadline for the Press Gazette is like 5 p.m. So anything that happens after that doesn't make it in the paper. And it's just sad. Like, there's no high school scores. My kids read everything on Twitter, which you don't get, like I say for me, like, I'm not going to put my best stuff on Twitter because I don't get paid by Twitter, right? Like, I'm going to put links to stories or links to stuff that's going to direct you to ESPN because that's who pays me. But that's the way it is now. I would not change my newspaper path for anything. I loved it. I loved covering games. Even as much as you complained when the phone rang and some guy wanted to report the Krivets versus Leona Wabino wrestling stats and you had to take it over the phone. It wasn't the greatest. Circling back to Pete Doherty, he and I, our desks were right across from each other for 16 years that we worked together at the Press Gazette. Pete one day got a call redirected to his desk. It was supposed to be a circulation call. Somebody didn't get their paper. Somehow it ended up at his line. And he left the office to take a paper and go deliver it to that person's house. Like, you can't get a paper delivered that you're paying for it by a guy whose job is to deliver the paper.
Right. Pete
actually went and got a guy a paper because it didn't come to his house that morning.
That's what we need. I'm not meaning to make that a requiem. I just want people to know, and part of the story here is because I'm 57 and Trevor, I all argue about the age, but age gap and but the paper to me was as vital to my love of sports.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm here today, because Sunday the Agate page came out and I wrote down what the Brewers had done every year. And I feel like that is something that kids miss. That's not on Twitter that would make them all better sports fans.
My insurance agent, I can see this, State Farm, sends me an envelope in the mail, and I'm like, oh God, my rates are going up, right? I open it up, and he put in there the Sunday morning Green Bay Press Gazette after DePere wins the state championship. Actually, It must have been Monday's paper because it happened too late Saturday night.
Sure.
And he sent us a picture of Hogan and his teammates in there that I hadn't seen. Like, I didn't get the paper. I hadn't seen it. And he mailed it to me. Like, who mails copies of newspapers? And so I turned around.
Grandmothers.
I turned around, went out and asked some friends of mine who work at the paper if I can get a few extra copies so I can send them to my parents in Florida.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
That's fantastic.
I got one. I have one. This is the only one I have in the entire office here. It was the Pink Flamingo article. That was on
there you guys.
The front page. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, and now it's on the floor. All right.
That's
Rob,
a wrap.
This was awesome. Yeah, that's a wrap, man. That's the end of the whole show, actually. Rob just stayed through the entire end.
Well,
Rob.
I know this. I was mad that you guys had Wes on, I believe, twice before I made my first appearance. Now I want my third, since we're both at 2, I want to get to 3 before he does.
We can make sure that happens now.
We can do that.
Although I'll say this, my sister is crazy about West. She's all on the West train. I don't know why. She lives in Grand Rapids, and I guess that's where she gets her news, is logging on to the Packers. But she's all about West.
Well, he's got better hair than me, which is to say he has hair.
I was going to say, again, look at that full coverage right there.
Yeah,
that
screw
right
you. We're done.
That says I grew up in television right there.
Yeah. Rob, this was fun, man. I'm glad we did an entire show about you. You've been here a long time, and everybody literally knows you.
We're putting the U in medium or whatever that is.
Can't spell me without media.
Thanks,
Good to see you, man.
All right, we'll see you guys.
We have barking orders out of that interview, J.A. No Wes Hod until Rob comes back.
Love Wes Hod.
Yeah, we do. We beyond love Wes Hod. He's
We just don't love
phenomenal.
him any more than anybody else. We are here for all are welcome. We are inclusive for everybody.
Apparently, we got to get Pete Doherty quick and talk about the Pierre Marquette Hotel.
It's like children. We love them all the same. We like them all. None is more favored than the others.
Yeah.
Except maybe Barry Alvarez. But other than that, everybody's tied for second.
Circle back with him, maybe. The Godfather. Hey, thanks to Rob Demovsky, ESPN Packers reporter. I love talking with those guys. This is obviously my dream job, and I looked up to all of you as I was growing up, Rob included, even though I'm not that much younger than him. But when I moved here, he was pretty popular on the beat and on the Press Gazette stuff, and it was cool to get to know him. Something interesting that I thought we would close with here is he mentioned when he goes to sporting events, he looks where the reporters are. Yep. Do you remember doing that when you were younger too?
Not when I was younger, but now when I go, because ESPN has prominence, I usually have a seat. I always look, where is overflow media? Because you get so many. And that's where a lot of times the TV guys ended up. So I've been in places in Texas Stadium that you're like, that's, first off, if I fall here, I'm probably dead. And the poor person that's got to pass media notes is even in more peril. So those are the things I actually look for, right? It was great when you go to Final Fours anymore, ESPN, I'm like, oh, look, here I am, third row, and I can, reach out and touch Jim Nantz, or now Ian Eagle. But when I go to places, I look for that to see where were people, like when I worked in Phoenix or when I worked in Tulsa, where were we stashed for that?
That's cool.
And so that's kind of what I look for. But I very much have that same vibe about what's happened in this stadium.
Yeah, that's cool.
I walked around St. Andrews and I'm like, Bobby Jones took a divot out of this place. Because this is the same place, or Old Memorial Stadium, before they even though it was a Ravens game, I thought, and I called my brother, who was a huge Johnny Unitas fan. And I'm like, Bill, I was on Memorial. This is where Johnny Unitas threw passes. And I do have that feeling still some when I go to Lambeau Field. And, when John Butchiegrass and I were there a few years ago, being actually on the field. And I think of everything from this is where the Ice Bowl was played to I can't believe my brother played high school football here, or my sister marched in a drum and bugle corps here. Like, I do think of that. I am well aware of the history of all those stuff because I love it. That's sort of who I am. And as you know, sometimes that stuff sticks with me.
Yeah, a little bit. I think, and you have something to tell a story with literally every time the papers. Again, it's just incredible. All right, J.A., we're off and running in season 3, man, here on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts every other week. You can catch us here and always on the socials, too. We post something nearly every single day. For John, I am Trevor. As you were, Wisconsin. We'll see you next time.
Can we dunk at your age? I don't know if we can or not. I mean, what the heck?
Oh, this is going to hurt. Nope. I can, just not in jeans, probably.
I know.
Farmers, brewers, hunters, packers, badgers, cheeseheads, neighbors. No matter what name we go by, we are bound together by our roots. These are the people, the stories, and the patriotism from inside Wisconsin. Welcome to Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet.
So we call this Inside Wisconsin's Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. And the idea is that we connect with people that have deep roots in the state. Jerry, you are your own deep root. Been here a minute or two.
Yeah, a few years, yes, that's right.
So how many years coaching here? Jerry Pettigrew, by the way, Hall of Fame coach here in the state of Wisconsin. How many years were you coaching here at Cuba City High School?
I've been at Cuba City 52 years.
And this was your last year, yeah?
This was my last year. 56 years varsity basketball coach in Wisconsin, 60 years total coaching.
What made you stick out coaching? Because let's be real, those fans are loud, those parents are loud.
People will say, well, geez, 52 years, and I don't know, I think we've been to state 9 times. You should have been there more. Well, you know, number one, it's hard. It's really hard. You know, we won it 3 times, took second once out of those 9 times that we were there. You know, one of the pride points for me, when people say, well, you know, you've won 1,027 games. Yeah, that's good. It's funny because people will say, do coaches know how many games they win? And coaches will, I don't know how many. Everybody knows how many they win. But my pride factor here was that out of those 52 years, maybe 45 of them, we won 15 or more games.
What made you give it up at the age of 82 and not, 65?
I did give up teaching at age 62.
Oh, good.
Okay?
20 years later.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I think when people ask me that question, I say 82 going on 83, and the bus rides got a little long this year. I just felt that this was the time. People say, well, you know, you lost all 5 starters and you're not going to be that good next year. I think Cuba City is going to be pretty good next year, to be very honest with you.
What made you stick here and really solidify your roots at Cuba City?
I left Galena, Illinois, which was my hometown, to come to Cuba City. I came for a pay cut because I wanted to be the varsity coach, and I wasn't a very good assistant coach. I like to be in control. And so I wanted once again to be back, and I never really thought that I would stay that long. Had a chance in 1981 to go back to Galena, my hometown, really, really close, and then I couldn't pull the trigger. In 1984, I finished second to a guy by the name of Bo Ryan at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Wow.
And I thought they made a really good decision, to be honest with you. And then in 1998, the University of Dubuque, I graduated from there, and they said, how about applying for the head basketball job? So I applied for the job, and I got it. I knew I was going to have a good team coming back, and I couldn't pull the trigger. We won the state in 1998 then. I finally came to the conclusion I was a high school coach. I wasn't a college coach. I loved high school. I loved teaching every day. I got to go up and I got to perform. I made history come alive in the classroom. I enjoyed it immensely. People said, well, this had to be your greatest thrill is on the basketball court. No, it was teaching. The floor then became an extension of my teaching. I think we're put on this earth to help people. I really do.
You mentioned that you were able to bring history to life and use this floor as teaching, and it's pretty cool that we're sitting in a gymnasium that is now a piece of your family heritage, Jerry Pettigrew Gymnasium. They gave it to you on February 14th, 1999. What took them so long?
No, you're funny. I thought it was a little bit too much, to be honest with you. They gave me this last year when I hit 1,000. It was nice. Somebody said that's a good picture. It's hard to get a good picture of me. I've looked old since I've been 20.
All right, so tell me the truth. Out of that group of 8 over there, knowing that you're one of them,
yeah,
who can't you stand?
You know,
you're not gonna tell me the truth, right?
No, I like them all.
You're saying all the nice things about it. I was just wondering who your biggest rival was.
Oh, the biggest rival probably now is Darlington.
Yeah.
Can't say that I dislike any of them, to be honest with you. It's just good, solid competition.
Here we are, conference champions, and then where's your state titles?
They have those out there. We were fortunate enough to win in 1981. I had a big team back then. For then, I had Billy Wagner at 6'4", Greg Timmerman at 6'3", John Trannell at 6'3".
It's fascinating how even back then, this is 1981, I mean,
Yeah.
that's 40 plus years.
Yeah.
You still remember all of that.
And people will say, well, how do you remember that? I always felt that teams were your extended family.
Sure.
And so you didn't forget about them. In 1991, the big guy in the middle, Greg Timmerman, he got a Division I scholarship to University of Wisconsin. The kid to the left, the first player to the left is Todd Kowalski. He's a doctor up in La Crosse. And then there's Randy Pallas, and Randy was from Dickeyville, and Greg Timmerman and Jamie Leifger and Tommy Laufenberg. That was my starting five on that team.
When's the last time you had these trophies in your hands?
Oh boy, I guess that day.
No way.
Yeah, that was probably it. And this one was 98. We weren't very big, but we ran well. And first row were my starters, a very, very successful young man, and it was good. It was good.
I want to put this trophy back in your hands. How cool would that be? And we were talking before we started filming that you obviously know Bo Ryan and his son Will and pretty much every other coach in the entire state. I just looked down at my phone. I just got a text back from Bo Ryan.
Okay.
I don't know what it says yet.
Okay.
We're going to look at it together. I texted him. I said, I'm getting the inside scoop on you. Bo Ryan just said, Jerry, great coach, better person. And I think that's a great way to kind of sum your career up, Jerry, is great coach, better person. And you're leaving such a legacy. If you were to just say how much it's meant to you to be here in the state, in this community for all these years, how'd you sum that up?
I'd say it's a good fortune. I've enjoyed every minute of it. And my wife is tremendous. Joan is the rock of our family. I have 3 wonderful kids, and life has been good for Jerry Pettigrew. Cuba City's been good. If you said if you could change anything in your life, what would it be? And probably the only thing I would say is that I'd have 10 more years to go coaching, but that's not possible.
Well, I think a lot of the people here would say that you built this place too. So I hope you take a lot of pride and maybe a little bit of credit for that. This was an honor. Thank you very much
Hey,
for
thank
inviting
you.
me us down.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate
Really
it.
appreciate it. How about the Sigma?
Yeah. Off the
Good.
glass?
Whoa, a little bit rusty on the
let's get it,
shooting.
mate.
It's a drop step straight up. No
Yeah.
dribble. Okay?
No, Joel.
No dribble. Yep. Good.
Is that good?
Good.
That's
That
the
was
famous good. So we've traveled a little bit to
The bus rides got a little long this year. And
Would you lift it? Would you pick it up if you could?
oh, yeah.
I know how to get in here. We can get in here.
And that's the final buzzer on episode 11 and apparently my dunking career. Hey, you try to dunk in jeans once. Inside Wisconsin's Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. Remember, if you have a Deeper Roots story that you'd like us to tell, you have to tell us what your story is. It's real easy. Just head to the website, farmandfleet.com/deeperroots. Fill out the form. We'd love to hear from you and share your story just like Coach Pettigrew's story. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to like us, subscribe, and leave Coach Pettigrew a well-wish or two in retirement. And if you're listening to the podcast, go ahead, leave a 5-star review. We'll see you next time.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Aaron's Company, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, Provea Health, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Shut up and sit down.